Yes, guys, I'm sorry. Welcome back to Ace Podcast Nation for another episode, and I'm delighted and excited to be talking to former Cardiff City player, Mr. Roger Gibbins. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Si. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you for your time with obviously not just Cardiff City, which I'm sure we'll talk about now, but for me, it's Cardiff City. You know, I remember you when I was a much younger man.
Don't
strutting your stuff.
I feel old as it is. I don't start. The amount of people I talk to, and they say, "Oh, I remember when I was just a kid," and I think, "Oh, I've been here quite a few years."
Yeah, it's interesting. So before we kind of get there, I guess what I do like to do is take people back a little bit for people who maybe don't know you or are not familiar with you. Tell us a little bit about where your life started and sort of how you. The early days, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a Londoner, I'm a North London boy, so grew up in a normal working class family back in the 50s, born in 55. So unfortunately, my mum and dad got divorced when I was about 2. So in the 50s, that was quite a big thing, quite a deal. And I had 2 brothers. So my mum brought 3 sons up. And on our own, basically, worked all hours God sends to get bonuses and live pretty okay, for where it was. We just thought it was normal, just a normal upbringing. That was how it was, and it was very happy, So always, I don't know why, but we were all sporty. My 2 brothers were sporty. My dad played for Tottenham just after the war, so the whole family was sporty, so it's sport, and I just increasingly as I grew up in London and started to play football at school and stuff like that, just gradually got into it and played for a Sunday side, and it was interesting when my first real good experience of football was when a lad came from the East End of London to our neck of the woods, went to our school, primary school, 10 years of age, 11 years of age, just before I was leaving for secondary school. And he played for a team in East London. And they always produced lads that went on to either play for Tottenham or Arsenal or something like that. Yeah. So he invited me to go down there. A short period of time, I started playing for them pretty quickly, and then it just snowballed from there, really. Yeah. So started at Tottenham, so I was lucky enough to. So career-wise, after doing pretty good as a schoolboy, signed apprentice at Tottenham at 15. Done my apprenticeship, signed a pro contract after a year and a half at 17 years of age. I was there till I was 19. I had about 2.5 years as a pro, and it was fantastic. We won the FA Youth Cup. I scored the winning goal in the FA Youth Cup final, which was a highlight. Bill Nicholson was the manager, and many of the older generation will know that he was kind of like up there with Bill Shankly and Busby and people like that. So, I really. The way it was going, I really thought that it was, I had a chance to break through, but he actually retired, probably in my last year there. Again, the older generation will remember Terry Neal, who was an Arsenal and Northern Ireland captain. He somehow got the Tottenham manager's job.
Very unusual, isn't it?
I know. And that was the end of me and about 10 others. He just completely changed the old squad. So it was disappointing, and I just from there I got a break at Oxford, made my league debut from Oxford, and I got into pro football because there was a time when Tottenham, because I hadn't made a league appearance when I was released at 19 at Tottenham. And there's a period there where I thought maybe this is not going to happen, but Oxford gave me an opportunity, and I played for them and Norwich, and later on played for a number of clubs, but eventually came to Cardiff. So I played for Cambridge for 3 years, 3 seasons, Norwich for 2 seasons, and it was just it was just great because wherever I went, I played basically. You know, I kind of never went to a club and then was like not in the team. I kind of like was lucky enough or worked hard enough to play regularly from the time I was about 22. You know, at Norwich I was in the top division with them and in the old first division, and I was kind of 20 odd games a season doing okay. But when I signed for Cambridge, really, when I was about 23, 24, I played pretty well regularly for every club that I played for thereafter. I came down to Cardiff when I was 26 in 82, and just hit it off. You know, I never missed a game for 2.5 years. I played 126 games consecutively.
That momentum going.
It was just brilliant. I just loved the place. I'll never forget me and my wife, because we met in London, and we're still together now. And she, we were driving down, didn't have kids then, and we come over the old bridge, and we were coming from Cambridge, Cambridge, the Fenlands, flat as a pancake, and we came over and saw the the valleys and that on the right hand side, the Usk Valley and that. This is nice, and then we drove into Ninian Park, which was a bit decrepit and old, but it was great. It was a proper football club, proper football ground, and met Len Ashurst, who was the manager, and I just, there was something. I signed there and then. I mean, he didn't offer me any,
you didn't even go away and think about it.
No, I just said, yeah, I want to sign, and that was after a couple of hours, and it was like. No, I mean, didn't have the money. I mean, only had 9 players at the time. Just got relegated the season before, and Len had only just come in that season, couldn't save them from relegation, and then he was trying to build a team basically, and I was part of it. And Jeff Everman, Dave Tong, Paul Bowden joined, Jimmy Mullen had just joined. The Bennett brothers had come the season before on loan, and then I think they signed. And all of a sudden, we had a team going. So that started my journey here. Yeah, it was brilliant.
A few things, which I was back to your opinion on, which you kind of just mentioned. And one of the things was the apprenticeship system. Obviously, it's massively changed now these days. Like the boys don't do jobs and things around the ground. Do you look back on that as a time where you were a kid being forced to do jobs? Or do you look back at it as like a really fond time of growing up?
It's interesting because when I finished playing, first of all, when I finished playing pro football, then I went out of the game. I then got a job with the PFA and later on with the English Football League Education, in exactly doing that, monitoring apprenticeships. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, going back to me was it was just what the apprenticeship was. There was no college, there was no education. It was football and jobs. Yeah. And that's how apprenticeships were up until probably the early 80s before it changed. But certainly in the 70s, yes, and it was normal. And I remember couldn't wait to leave school. I actually signed instead of waiting until June or July when you normally sign, the 1st of July, I signed in April. I don't know how you could, but I did. I left school. I got out of the gates as quick as I could. And the first thing I done, so that was the back end of the season. I couldn't play, but I joined the club. And then the season ended like end of April, beginning of May. And the first thing I done was painting the corridors, doing all sorts of
just jobs around the place.
We were basically on the ground staff. In that respect, but obviously we were once the season kicked off, pre-season we were. But I mean, it was hard. It was hard work, and it was really. You always had, and we had somebody there. He was the kit man actually. Tottenham's Harry Parsons, if you like, and he was always watching us, and then sort of if we were cleaning something, going around with his finger, and still a bit of dust there, do it again. You haven't quite the boots, all the boots we had to do and stuff like that. We done loads of cleaning out the changing rooms, everything, washing them. But in the summer, painting and decorating and doing all sorts. But it was kind of like team building. That's how we looked at it. It was kind of like it all worked together, and if we try, don't try and cut corners, because if you do, you're going to get found out. And so in that respect, we kind of learned a lot in doing those things. You don't cut corners, you do things properly, and if the job's worth doing, do it right, and then you'll feel good about yourselves, and working as a team and stuff like that. It sounds a little bit sort of old school now, but that's how it was, and it did work. It did work. It did bring you up with like a working sort of mindset.
Yeah, as well.
Working mindset. Yeah.
I'd imagine as well, certainly from speaking to other players who came on a bit later than you as well.
Yeah.
They all look back at it really fondly, and they all look back at that sort of camaraderie and things like that. But also teaches you like a work ethic.
Yeah.
And like if you want something, you've got to sort of earn it and earn the right and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe there's like a happy medium between perhaps where it was in the sort of 70s and stuff like that, and then where it is now. I feel like somewhere maybe in between is a bit better, because sometimes I feel like the young players now, perhaps they miss that graft and the jobs around the thing, and particularly at the very top clubs, they're almost, by the time they get to the 23s and the first team, or even in the brink of the first team, they're already quite often getting more money than most people will earn in a year, and they haven't got that mentality which is was installed from sort of 14 to 18, and I think it can create some issues for the players.
I think so. I think you're right, and the way I would call it really is that in our day, in the 70s, before the mid 80s, and particularly now, before nowadays. It was just the way it was done, and it was the way you were brought and introduced into a football club, and it worked. And I'm not saying, and you're right, I'm not saying that will work today, because things have moved on, but today, I would say, and I haven't seen it firsthand, that there is definitely a culture, probably mainly at the top clubs, mainly at the clubs that have got everything, and they kind of, the boys at the top clubs don't necessarily, not all, but not necessarily have to do jobs, have to work as hard. And I'll give you an example of that. So I used to monitor Exeter City, obviously it's a sort of first and second division side, and all their boys. And two of their lads that had signed for the club, actually Chelsea were after. Now, one actually signed for Chelsea, but one decided to stay and sign for Exeter, Jack Sparks. The other one that went to Chelsea was Aberdeen. Funny enough.
Okay.
So, but they'd gone on trial in the season when they were 15s, and they went to play a match there. And when they got there, because they'd been in the Exeter Academy, they were used to, like, in the changing room, and then their kit, and then they'd look after themselves, and then afterwards they'd clean up or whatever. They told me, actually, when I spoke to them, they said the Chelsea boys did nothing. 15 years ago, the same 15-year-olds did nothing except act like pros, like just come in, play. Everything was done but they were used. They already had that through the academy. They already had that work ethic. And I think there's a little bit of that about now. I can't say all, because I haven't been around all clubs, but we have to be careful that this idea that everybody thinks, well, they don't do anything. Well, they do. I can tell you most apprentices at most football clubs work very hard, both on and off the pitch. They do education. They have to do an education program. It's not an easy education program. It's aimed to make sure that they've got something behind them if they go out the game. Now, that could be at 18, it could be at 23, it could be at 28, it could be any time. So generally in football, I think think the apprenticeship and the way the boys work is a great system now. They have got everything to go for, and they are looked after, and they have got an after football now. Whereas in our days, I always tell this story to the boys. I said, look, you might think, oh, that was great, no college, you didn't have to go to to do this, that, and the other, and I said, well, we worked hard, and when we were released, if we were released, and some of my mates were released at 18, I was released at 19. I said, we had nothing. Yeah. I said, when I left at night, I had nothing behind me whatsoever, and that was all boys at that stage. There was nobody. The only ones that had anything in the 70s and that era was the ones like Trevor Booking that actually didn't sign apprentice. They stayed on at school and done their A-levels, O-levels, A-levels, or whatever it was in those days.
So they had that education.
And then they signed at 18 or 19. So, it is getting that balance. You're right. It's just getting the balance. I think that generally the balance is really good. And you can see it in when you see, let's take, for example, a couple of like big names that are, Bellingham for one. I mean, this Jude Bellingham's got to be one of the best players
the UK's produced. Certainly the best
ever produced. And he came through Birmingham, which isn't a Premier League side; it's a Championship side generally. But he's been brought up right. You can tell that, and he's got a work ethic, and he's just a fantastic person. And there's a lot of those type of guys, But you're always going to get a mix, and you'll never, even in our day, you'd get a mix. We signed the England schoolboys under 15 captain in my apprenticeship year. They released him after a year. He couldn't handle it. They actually released him after 1 year of his 2-year apprenticeship. The captain. That we all thought, oh, England, and he was technically a good player, but he didn't have it in him so you have to have it all, and I think that's one of the messages really for football, for kids today, for youngsters today. Have a look at the ones that have got it all. Don't just look at the ones that look good and think, oh, he's a good player. Technically, he's fantastic. Look at the whole package. Look at the person behind it, and you go no further than Bellingham. An example to every young footballer in the world, in the country. Look at what he's doing; it's unbelievable. He's doing it really well, isn't he? It's fantastic.
Yeah, he seems like a nice lad as well. He's just got his head. His brother's not bad either.
His brother's good. I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him because
he's always going to be Bellingham Junior.
I'm sure he's probably out there saying, just take me for what I am. Look at me as a footballer. Don't look at my brother, sort of thing.
It's almost impossible, isn't it?
Because he looks a bit like him. He plays a bit like him, but he's always going to be, probably talked of. But
Phil Neville had the same problem to a certain extent. Look at what he achieved in terms of trophies and things like that.
Yeah,
he was always kind of Gary Neville's brother. Unfortunately, it's part and parcel of being the younger brother, I think. But
generally, if you look at the game and you look at young players coming through, and you look at the England team, and you look at even the home nations teams, you see the quality of players that have come through in the last few years. I mean, British football used to be looked at as just strong and big and physical and stuff like that. I mean, we've had some and still have producing some fantastic players.
Yeah, you can see a massive change in the technical quality of the players coming through, like the young players. Technically, it's like a different level to where they were perhaps years ago.
It is, definitely. I mean, we had the odd one. We had the Oddles, the Glenn Oddles now and again. But, there was Tony Curry, who was a fantastic player. I mean, with Hudson at Chelsea, Alan Hudson, fantastic player. But it kind of didn't. Those guys didn't have, even Glenn Oddle didn't have the whole package. I mean, Glenn Oddle didn't even play regularly for England at one stage because of his defensive sort of, failings, if you like. He wasn't great off the ball and stuff like that. I mean, you look at, if you take Bellingham, if you take Foden, if you take, take Foden as another example of a youngster where Man City have really done well with him in terms of, it was obvious at a very young age probably that he was technically brilliant, but did he have the right sort of attitude? Would he work hard on that? Well, he is. He's turned into that player now where he's, but I think it took a little bit of time with him to get that side of it. But he has got it, and now he's probably, and they didn't loan him out, did they? No. A lot of players they'll loan out and come back and stuff like that. So that's another thing about football that needs looking at. The loan system. What's it all about? Why are you loaning players out? Why do you do it? Is it right that a club like Chelsea can have
20, 30 players loaned out
at least, maybe 40 all around the world?
It's not right, is it? Because you're just hoarding players at that point.
It's rubbish. It's rubbish.
Just lastly on the kind of the apprenticeship side of things. So I had it was interesting listening to you there because I spoke to a sports psychologist called Tracy Shanahan. It was in lockdown, but her job was literally to help boys and girls, but predominantly boys who come sort of through the academy system. Sometimes they've been there since in the 7s, all the way up to sort of 16, 17s. And then they assume because they've gone through each age group and just, we're in under 16s next year, 17. And then when it gets to the decision time, they get dropped. Yeah. And they've kind of abandoned a bit of school and this and the other. And her job is to try and help them effectively understand that their life's not over, first of all. But it's very difficult because, like you said, that's one of the advantages and one of the things that has improved within the game is that these apprentices and these young academy players, they do have to do a bit of schooling and stuff, because not every player is going to make it. Not every player who's in the academy from 7 to 17 is then going to play naturally for the first team. Some of them will go first team, some of them will go elsewhere, some of them will drop out of the game. And I think making sure that these young people, because we've all heard kind of these tragic stories of people going off the rails when it hasn't worked out well. And the other thing is, the other side of it is, you could get into the first team and then get an injury. There was that lad, played for Manchester City, a blonde lad a few years back, Michael Johnson, and he played a few games, and he looked like, I remember watching him against Liverpool in one game, and he absolutely up against Gerrard, of all people.
Yeah, he was a midfield player, wasn't he? Yeah, he was a good player.
I think he scored a couple of goals, and he was the next big thing. And then he had an injury, and then I think had some sort of issues then when he was out, and he never quite sort of got back to the level he was at, and few off the field things.
Yeah.
And really, he had got to a point where a lot of people would have gone, I've made it. I'm playing first team football for Manchester City every week. I can probably get paid handsomely and stuff like that. A freak injury, and it can all change very drastically.
Absolutely, and this is exactly why in the last 20 years in particular. So I'm semi-retired from the company now, but the football league set up what's known as League Football Education (LFE). So it's and I used to work full time with that, and that is a monitoring job with all clubs in the football league, and the Premier League are covered as well by a different organisation. And the very need for that is exactly what you just said. There is a variant. There will be players that will need help at various times. It's not just it's not one size fits all. It's we have to cover every possibility, which is why LFE in the last 20 years has built up in the program, a personal development program, a well-being program. There is so much support, and this is where sometimes I get a bit annoyed with people that aren't in the know about these things, and this is people in football as well, by the way, that haven't got a clue. People that work in football clubs haven't got a clue what happens in the apprenticeship. They haven't got a clue what these boys actually do. They get life skill sessions, about 6 a year, because if you think about it, the biggest difference between football in the 70s and football now is that the world's changed so much, and the players now, to be fair, have to manage so much more than they did in the 70s. They didn't have to manage hardly anything, just playing and getting on with your work and stuff like that. It was social media being one of the hardest things to manage and deal with, but all sorts of stuff. People think, what a great life, and you get paid so much money, too much money, and all you do is go in for a couple of hours, train, and you've got all your time and this, that, and the other. That's the biggest load of rubbish that I've ever heard. Now, if you do well and you have a career in the game, and you're in your mid-20s and you've done all the groundwork, all the hard work, and you've got there, it can roll along, and it is a fabulous life. But you've still got the pressures of, and the pressures for the kids are not just like, are you good enough, are you skillful enough, have you got enough ability about you and stuff like that. Can you handle the mental side of it? Can you handle playing in front of big crowds? Can you handle the abuse, basically, that you're going to get, which is going to come, whatever people try and do and organisations try and do, it's going to come. When you get 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, you're going to get people, even if it's just one person, shouting something. With me, it used to be in front of small crowds at Cambridge, 3,000, 4,000, even at Cardiff, when in the bad days in the 80s, 3,000, 4,000, you could hear pretty well every individual comment. And you heard stuff, I won't swear, but there was swear, but basically, you're rubbish, what you're doing. And I always had the approach, and I try and instill this into the young kids. I said, look, this is going to happen. People are going to come and watch you. They'll give you their opinions. You might be the best player on the team. You really might be. But there'll be somebody that don't like you. Oh, yeah. There'll be somebody that don't like your style, or don't like the way you are, don't like the way you play. And they will give you some stick. I say, you've got to be able to, just dust yourself down, walk off a duck's back. You don't take any notice of it really. You just take it part and parcel of, like, that's their right. They pay their money to come and watch. They can vent their feelings. They can go off and one. My father-in-law, God bless him, is not here now, but my wife's father, when I was at Cambridge, used to threaten to punch people's lights out because there was a certain bloke that kept calling me out, and you could hear it. And so. Youngsters have got to learn so much. They've got to deal with so much. They've got to put up and manage so much. So it's a big deal. It's not easy, but there is a lot of support, particularly for the apprenticeship program, particularly for the youngsters. Because I'll just give you one stat. So we do stats going back 10, 15 years for all our apprentices that go through the program. Okay, so roughly just under half that sign apprenticeship forms, about 40%, 45% on average, get some sort of contract after their 2-year apprenticeship, which is not bad. It's not bad. When you think they'll probably take about 10 lads each season, and if they say sign 5 or 6 of them, as pros, that's not a bad return. The problem is, and we've done research on this, over the last 10 or 15 years, the percentage of players that sign apprenticeship forms and then are still in professional football at 21 is 5%. It's 5%.
Super low.
So between 18 and 21, you lose about 30, 40% of the boys that have got a pro contract. That's the real big deal. That is where we're struggling with football, because we've got 23s football. 21's football, 23's football. It's changed, and a lot of clubs sign a lot of boys, and then they just drift along in this sort of 21's football, 23's football, not really getting league games, and they come to sort of 19, 20, 21, and there's too many clogged up in the system, and that's a big problem. So we're getting a lot of lads that are released at 20, 21, 22, 23. And of course, they go into non-league. Now, a non-league game is as strong as it's ever been. That's why you're getting Maidstone doing so well. The quality and the strength of non-league football from National League to North, South and below getting stronger and stronger because more and more good players are dropping out of the league.
Yeah, and I think
it's interesting, isn't it?
It is. I'm really fascinated by it because I think those players who drop out and maybe if they can't get a club within the league system, some of them will think, "Oh, I don't want to go and play non-league and work my way back up," and they will drop out of the game. But some, we've seen. Obviously, you've got like the famous examples of like your Vardys and people who come up from the non-league. But there's also a load of players who've dropped down to the non-league system, excelled, and then now play for League One, League Two clubs.
Yeah,
and I think not everyone can be, playing for Real Madrid, like Jude Bellingham. You can have a super career in football, playing League One, Championship, League Two, non-league in some cases, and I think that's also something which should be encouraged to talk to with children and teens. It's like, just because you get knocked back or just because it doesn't go right here doesn't mean that that's the be all and end all. But yes, have a backup plan, but also let's see what else is around. Is there another route?
Yeah, and there is, and there's always a route. If you've got the passion and the resilience and the will and the dedication to do it, there's always a route, and there will be a few different ways of doing it, and you need a bit of luck as well.
Of course.
If I go back to my school days, there was probably 3 or 4 good players in my school team when I was 13, 14, 15, because we didn't have academies then. We played at school. There wasn't full-time academies, so one of them I think went to Colchester and got a contract at Colchester, but there's a couple of others that just didn't get the luck or weren't seen by the right people, because again, back in the day, it was like scouts would come out and watch the games at schoolboy level and then just pick them, as they saw them, kind of thing. So you didn't, clubs didn't have boys in, regularly, and academies training all the time like they do now. So from that point of view, I think there won't be many that slip the net in terms of, to get an apprenticeship or a chance for a pro contract at a club with the apprenticeship. But of course, you have to balance that with how difficult it is now, to get through. So we then go on to that question about how difficult is it, and the problem is numbers. The problem is numbers of overseas players that play in our game now, which has brought quality across the board.
So reduces
it's not just the Premier League, but it reduces opportunities for our homegrown lads. And it's really, it's not going lower. It's just going in one direction all the time. If you look at all teams from all divisions, and I'm looking at Scottish football as well now, particularly in Scottish football, they're just absolutely overwhelmed with foreign players. Good players, probably, but those good players, and that's another thing you've got to deal with. We're talking about it's a worldwide game, and we're talking about everybody can play wherever they want to play and stuff like that. But it always has an effect on something or someone, and the effect for us here is our youngsters.
And of course, some clubs now tend to sign players from abroad for their academy systems, particularly some of the Premier League clubs.
They are,
because they want the best talent.
Yeah.
And obviously that has a knock-on effect. Even with Cardiff, Man United signed that, I've forgotten his name now, Gabriel. He's got an Italian son name, I can't remember his name now, I apologise. But recently, in the last year or so,
our young man, one of our young lads they've signed,
he was like 15 and
last season before, wasn't it?
And funny enough, I came across some highlights of a United under 18s game on YouTube the other day, and he was there, he was on the bench, and he came on and he did quite well there. But good luck to him. But I mean, the top clubs are always going to do that, aren't they? Just very lastly on this, there's one question I wanted to just run by you, and then do you want to talk about you in Cardiff
Yeah.
and your career in particular. But with the obviously the help, and you mentioned all the different processes and things that young players get now, which maybe they didn't get before, like education. So what about players maybe who come from like certain types of areas, rough areas? Maybe they've grown up with friends who are into the wrong sorts of things.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they come through the system and if they succeed and they have money, it's going to be very difficult for them to manage that. Do you know what sort of support would be in place from whether it be the PFA or the clubs? Or it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you can't tell someone who to be friends with.
No,
obviously, if they've grown up, but you also got to teach them to make good decisions.
It's a real issue, and I've seen it myself. And I'll give you an example, just an example. And this goes on a lot.
Well,
sure, all over the place. But so I was monitoring Yeovil, and they were in the league a few years ago, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was. And they couldn't get enough, being Yeovil, they didn't have enough local boys that were good enough to be apprentices, so they'd go looking for boys that had been maybe at bigger clubs but not got an apprenticeship at 16, so they would get outside. So they went with 2 or 3 South London boys, okay, that I think had been probably at Palace and places like that, but didn't get the apprenticeship. And they signed a particular year. They signed 2 or 3 lads from South London. They'd watched them play, and on the field they were good. They were talented, and for Yeovil it was like better than what they had.
Yeah.
What they didn't know is what they didn't look into enough was their background, and where what they'd done basically. Yeah. So, not going into it in too fine a detail, basically they were boys that were mixed up in a load of rubbish that was going on in South London, with games and stuff like that, and knife crimes, everything. They were mixed up with it, and these 2 or 3 boys, whilst good players, were an absolute nightmare to deal with in terms of they wouldn't do their education, they wouldn't buy into it, they were always late. In other words, an example of being a good player, being a good footballer, but being from their backgrounds, what they were brought up, and I felt sorry for them in a way because it's their background.
Yeah, it's nothing they can do.
And I actually talked to them, and I used to talk to them individually when I spoke to these boys. And I tried to get sort of into it a little bit, and they kind of shut up. They shut off a little bit. They wouldn't. They'd say a little bit, but they wouldn't go into it full pelt. And there must be a lot of that all over. Where areas where in different parts of the country that happens. And I mean, I think it's a pretty known fact that Rooney was from a quite tough, rough area. And I think he's already said himself that if he didn't go into football, he probably would have been in prison. And that's Rooney, who's a brilliant player, played for England, and fantastic.
So it's the obvious.
Well, there you go. And that funny enough,
Ferguson said he was the most talented footballer he's ever seen.
Well, I was in Manchester once. I went to the training ground with a couple of colleagues, and we were just doing a bit of observation and stuff. And we talked to the academy there and stuff, and his name came up. And that's another example of a very, very talented player that had a difficult background, and stuff like that. There's a lot of it about what's the answer. It's a difficult one. We have got support. We do have support for clubs and for boys, but when you're from that kind of background, it's difficult to unravel and fix a lad that's been sort of there for years as a lad to sort of, hey, come on, you got to toe the line there. You can't be doing any of that. It's a real difficult one. It has happened where lads have got out of it, if you like, for want of a better phrase, got out of that, and then football's been their saviour. But I think there's an awful lot that it's been their failure in terms of making it as football, and you know what happened.
Yeah, for me, funny enough, I'm good friends with Roger Gibbins. I do a show with him on a Thursday, and he, you know, obviously he's got a famous brother and whatnot, but he was a very talented footballer.
He was,
and I think he came on. He did do a trial at Cardiff at one point, and Torquay, and he did sort of the rounds. And he says himself, he fell in with the bad crowds and just sort of faded away from it. And there's for every success story, there's 10 which don't.
It's really sad, actually. It's really
a lot of talent was not wasted, I suppose is the wrong word, but undiscovered or unrecognised.
Yes, no, it's a real it's a real shame, and you know it's and I guess it will carry on because the world we live in, you know, there's places, you know, in the country that are still, you know, have their issues and with youngsters and stuff, probably even more now than back in the day. I don't know, but it's a difficult one to deal with.
It is indeed. So, going back to your time at Cardiff, you said you signed very quickly, like a couple of hours, and you were very happy to be here and raring to go.
Excited.
What was that like? That initial period of settling into the club from living down in Wales and new teammates, all that sort of stuff.
It's funny again. It's just how it was. I was 3 months. I was given 3 months to sort of kind of buy a house. So I was given 3 months expenses but that expenses wasn't a hotel or anything. It was with a family. So I actually lived with a family, which was I didn't mind that. I'd been at Norwich and I was a single lad at Norwich, so I was in digs in Norwich when I was 19, 20 years of age. So, but to come to Cardiff at 26 and then go with a family for 3 months, for me, it was lovely. They were great. You know, they looked after me well. And the hardest bit was that my wife was back. We didn't have kids, but my wife was back in Cambridge, so she was still working. So up until I looked around for a house and bought a house, and that I used to go back at weekends and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was great in terms of settling in. It was fantastic. We were building, and Len was building a new team. So there was kind of like 7, 8, 9, like Phil Dwyer, John Lewis, Lyndon Jones, Keith Ponting, Andy Dibble, Taki Mikulev, Paul Giles, all local Welsh, but they were still there. But there was, but funny enough, because Len had scouts, in England mainly. So Jeff, Hammerman, Dave Tong, all English boys were being brought into the club. And do you know what? That made it even better because we kind of eventually got a squad together during pre-season of about 15 lads, 16 lads. And it was almost kind of like Welsh English type thing. And that immediately, like that,
it's a bit of competition.
That kind of what we used to call banter that you can't have anymore. We were into it straight away. And that would be in the form of not off the field, on the pitch, 7-a-side, 8-a-sides, like Len loved it. He said, right, Wales against the rest of the world or England or whatever, and we'd have and it made it like there was never a dull moment in training. It was never easy. It was never relaxed. It was always competitive. It was always right on it, and that for me is how it should be. And you'll hear a phrase in football, you play how you train, and I believe that. I look at teams now, and I can imagine how Man City train, and I can imagine how certain other clubs train, and I always look at the team and I think, I don't know what they're doing in training, because I don't know what they're doing out there. And I do believe you play how you train. So all these great teams, all these, when they're playing so well and doing so good, I look at the manager and I think, and I look at the trainer, I think they must do that. Man City don't go in and just run. and do set pieces
No, of
and
course.
stuff like that. They must work at just playing football all the time. Just fantastic movement. Yeah, but so it's a brilliant. I had no worries, and it took a couple of weeks, and it was like, oh, this is great. I mean, we didn't go anywhere. We didn't have any pre-season trips. We went to St Athens. We were at St Athens, the IF base down there, and had 3 days there, and it was so hard. It was so hard, but we got together, and we were soon together. Both on and off the pitch, and obviously in our days, you were together off the pitch as much as you were on the pitch. Really, we've done a lot of stuff for the club. We've done a lot of visits to places, in the valleys and stuff like that for appearances and stuff like that, and we enjoyed doing that. We soon got together, soon got to know each other pretty well, and as the season wore on, took a little bit of a slow burner to begin with, as you would expect, with a new team, and then we just got better and better, So it was, and it was happy days, and like I said, I didn't, and I think it was probably 1 or 2 subs at that stage, maybe 3. I don't know. In the 80s, it was probably 2 subs or 3 subs at the time, and it was, everybody was together, and we never had an issue with that, even when we had a bad spell or a couple of bad results. We were soon back on it, and I think that goes a lot for it. But as I say, didn't miss a game. I just love it. I mean, people often ask me one of the questions, where did you enjoy your football most? Where was you most successful? Where was you happiest? Well, the first 2 seasons that I played for Cardiff, in 82, 83, 84, it take a lot of beating in terms of enjoyment and satisfaction. And I know at 26, I think at 26 you ran about your peak, your mid-20s. So I was ready for it, and it was really enjoyable. We done well. We done well, but football being football. And just before you ask anything else, so we got promotion first time up, first season, and what do? Sold David to Coventry for £110,000. So that just hit us in the stomach straight away. Yeah. Cardiff City.
Typical Cardiff, that is. Get promoted, sell all your players, and sell your best players. It's what we do. So I'm kind of interested in how that team developed then, because it seems like you were building something, and you, like you say, it took a bit of time to get going, but once it got going, obviously you got promoted and stuff like that. But also towards the end, at the end, I'll ask you 5 quick fire questions, which I'll just ask you to ask off the top of your head. But tell me some of your memories, or your favourite memories of Ninian Park, and I'll try not to cry as you do it.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny. I was watching it just 2 nights ago on YouTube, and there's a bit on it, memories of Ninian Park. And I was watching it. I did have tears in my eyes, honestly. And that's only, well, I say only a few seasons, but by the time 82 to when I was also doing the hospitality, up until 2010, 9 or 10, 9 was it 9? Memories of Ninian Park and are very fond because it's a proper, what I call a proper football stadium. So the atmosphere was brilliant. I'll never forget playing as an away player, for Cambridge and maybe Oxford as well. A couple of games I played here, and feeling, a little bit, pressurised, as you like, and the fans, and this was like, obviously when there's 20, 30,000, but this was even when there was 6, 7, 8,000, it was quite intense. And what I liked about it, the pitch, well, I'd say the pitch in latter years was great to play on. It wasn't the first season because the Blue Dragons were there, and they cut it out by October, and it was like Barry Island. And the actual fact, we used to train on Barry Island purely and simply because our pitch was so sandy. We trained on Barry Island regularly every week, and we never lost. We lost our first game over Wrexham, and then we won 17 and drew 5 of the next 22 home games. It was because everybody came down, looked at the pitch, and just couldn't play on it. They just couldn't play on it. So it worked to our advantage. Although we were a good team, we were used to it. But yeah, I don't know. It's something about old and you know. I can't say that in terms of the facilities, you know, for the fans and the toilets and the cafe. Yeah, it needed
Toilets for the fans in Ninian Park.
It was, you know, believe me, we used to walk around and we knew it, you know, we could see it. Everything. I mean, you know, it weren't just that we were players and we didn't know about these things. We knew everything about that club. But it just had a great. The atmosphere is the best thing about it. The atmosphere of the place, you know, even when it was empty, you know. And don't get me wrong, the new stadium's fantastic. And you look at it and you stand there and you think, oh, this is lovely. But you don't get those chills that you used to get at Ninian Park, where you think, oh, you know, this is special. This has been here years, and this is like, you know. And then the memories of it, I suppose, the memories of all the games gone past, and keep looking at the Real Madrid, Ryan Clark goal, and you know, all that sort of stuff. And you know, it's great memories for us as well, because 82, 83, 92, 93, when we'd done the double, you know, and you know, there was 20,000 coming through, which was great then, and stuff like that. So it just the whole thing gives you a good feeling, good memories. Proper football stadium, you know, night games were brilliant. You know, there was something
so special about the night games,
something about night games, and yeah, the fans, you know, and the fans have always been. Fans are like a massive part of any football club. Without them, you can't have a football club. And with them, and when they're with you, you know, they make a big difference. They make a big difference, and you know, but you've got to earn that. You know, as a team, as a player, as a team, you've got to earn that. You know, it's not for the fans to get you going. It's for you to get the fans going. So you have to go out there and do it. And this is a big thing for me for modern day football, where I think a lot of players have got that wrong, or a lot of managers or a lot of teams have got that wrong.
Yeah, they think the fans should just be.
Yeah, it's like, you know, come on, fans, we need your help. Like, you know, and I'm thinking, no, it's the other way around. You know, you've got to give the fans, you know, something to be excited about, and then they will get behind you 100%. And also, the one thing, and I've always said it, and this is what's got me through a professional career, is that you know, they always love a try. You know, the fans always love a try. They will forgive a hell of a lot as long as they see you absolutely giving your maximum day in, day out, game in, game out. And that's what I relied on. You know, and I always would do that. And you know, the fans will probably say, oh, but they'll also, oh yeah, you know, he gives everything. So they forgive you a lot for that. And I think again, you know, some of our modern day players ought to think about that, you know, in terms of how it works. Because for me, how it works is, you know, you go out there and you give everything, and the fans will give you more back, you know. And that's actually.
Yeah, I said on a recent show that, you know, yes, the fans got to get behind the team and stuff like that, but also, like, fans will accept losing if they feel like you couldn't have given any more.
Exactly.
Like, if you're aggressive and you're passionate and you're running and you're working, like, fans will forgive losing. They won't forgive losing and looking like you're just there for the money or there for you, whatever the reason.
It's the worst thing ever. It's the worst thing ever. And I hear them now. And you know, and when it's not gone well, and when it hasn't been there, maybe, and they come up, you know, and the real depressing and moaning and real anger, really, about, you know, can't believe it. You know, I don't like they earn so much money, they should be going. It's nothing to do with money. Nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with money. It's to do with personality. It's to do with your own approach to stuff. And you know, for me, it's got to be. There's only one way it can be. I get annoyed with the games at present. That I've always believed first 15 minutes, you just go. As a home team, I've always believed first 15 minutes, pummel them. Don't wait. They're the away team. They've travelled. They want a nice, easy, osy like first 15 minutes to settle into the game. Don't let them settle into the game. Let's go for it. We haven't done that for a number of years, I don't think.
No, it's
been easy. This easy, osy stuff, and get into the game and try and work around them and try. It's too slow. It's too easy. Because I always think one of the things I always think of football is don't think of just what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve. Think what the other side don't want you to do or do want you to do.
Yeah.
So what the other side comes to Ninian, Ninian Park. What they want to do is they want to come down. They want to get in. They want to settle into the game. They don't want to don't want to go one down early. They don't want a lot of pressure early. They want to sort of And that's what an away team does normally.
They want to let the fans go.
And I think we possibly miss a trick. At the moment we don't get out enough in the first 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, that's just a football thing. But yeah, Ninian Park. It was sad, I mean, there was a lot of people, and I was working. That we went into the new stadium. A lot of people didn't like it at the beginning.
No.
They didn't. They were still missing Ninian Park. Gradually turned around. Until we changed their colours, and then that got them going.
So no. Just to finish off, then I'm going to ask you 5 quick fire questions. So you don't need to think about them too much. I just want you to kind of give whatever answer comes first to your mind. If you want to,
is it an either or no, or is it just an open?
Generally, either or. But if you want to give a brief reason, you're more than welcome. But it's got to be. It's quick fire, so it's got to be brief, I suppose.
Go on then.
And the first one is really, really easy. Ninian Park or Cardiff City Stadium?
Ninian Park.
Ninian Park. Worst moment on a football pitch?
Worst moment on the football pitch was, I think, the worst defeat I suffered, which was 6-something, not for Cardiff, but for Cambridge United. But I remember losing 6-0 at Bolton, I think it was. Wasn't nice.
No.
Luckily, no injuries and stuff like that, so no worst moments in terms of that. So it'd have to be, what happened on the pitch and stuff like that. So possibly that springs to mind. Yep. The worst defeat I've ever had, 6-0. Okay. Don't want another one.
Angriest teammate.
Angriest teammate. Difficult. I'd say Jimmy Mullen was quite angry. He could get quite angry. He's our skipper.
Yeah.
82, 83. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jimmy Mullen, I'm going to go for. He won't like me for that, but he said his piece. Quite right.
Never shy of saying a word.
No.
Most talented footballer you played with?
Most talented footballer, and this is open. Anyway. So there was a lad at Norwich, and this is quite interesting actually. Billy Steele, his name is, and he's Scottish under-21s international. In training, I think the best player I've seen. He had everything. He was kind of like a bit of an all-round midfield player, a bit like Bellingham. He could score goals, make goals. He was all brilliant skill, fantastic lad as well. But could never kind of produce it on a match day to the heights of what we knew he could do. It was very frustrating. He played fairly regularly, but he didn't have that confidence to do it on a match day and stuff like that. It's disappointing, but he was brilliant. He was fantastic, and there's been a few players at Cardiff. Dave Bennett springs to mind straight away as a player that I love playing with. Fantastic provider, Hemmerman scoring goals and stuff like that. But you look at the 92, 93 team. There was so many good players there. Blakey, Blakey was a player that we struggled with when he was young, me and Len, you know, to get going. But once we got him going, I mean, what he produced, you know, when you look at Blakey, he had a really, really good career.
Yeah, he was very good.
And he's a talented player, by the way. He can do it. He could do anything. He had everything in his locker.
So what sort of issues was it when he was younger?
Blakey was just to get him into what we wanted him to do. So originally we played him at the back, which probably, you know, when in hindsight you think, oh, what are you playing him at the back for? Well, actually, he was brilliant.
Yeah, good on the ball.
He was brilliant. We played 3 centre backs, and we played him left centre back of the 3, and we had top division 1 at the time. No, Premier League. Just started Premier League 92, 93. So I don't know. He would have been the season before. So the old first division, we had clubs looking at him, you know, and so we had to convince him that look, this is your development. He was only 19 or 18, 19, and he was so easy on the ball. He's strong. He was brilliant in the air. He was like he had everything. He could come away with it, through it, and he played great. But he insisted, you know, and he was like that. Like, you know, I want to play, you know, up there. I want to play left side. I think he wanted to play left side more than up front at that time. And we knew that. We knew, you know, I knew. I said, yeah, he could play anywhere. You know, and but we didn't need that at the time. No. We needed that. You know, so we had to convince him about that. But then I think he was the type of lad that he was at Chelsea, you know, and didn't work out. And then you know, from where he's from, and he had mates and stuff like that. We just had to get him into the professional outlook of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And we did, you know. And then when Eddie came, you know, and Eddie loved him, and we all loved him, you know. And we all saw the potential and what a player he was. And then he just flourished, you know, and then culminated in 92, 93, and then obviously the next season, the Man City goal, and the tragedy of that was that at the time in 93, 94, Rick Wright was stating that he was selling the club, and he sold him to Sheffield United for 300 grand cash instead of £1 million. He was offered £1 million by another club over a period of time. Yeah. But he took the cash because he was going, and that was
ridiculous.
Travesty. 300 grand with no sell-ons or nothing.
No, it's
ridiculous. So yeah, Blakey's brilliant. I mean, you know, I see him. I talk to him now, and I know. He's very not outspoken, but he's you know, he's got his own mind, and he's got his own thoughts on things, and he's very good, I think. But you know, I think he'd say, yeah, he grew up, he grew into it, and he grew up, you know, in those sort of 1 or 2 years with Len, and he flourished with Eddie. Yeah,
absolutely. So. We haven't run out of time now, which is a bit unfortunate. But I didn't even get to Eddie, mate, which was a bit I'm looking forward to. But maybe one day if you're
no, we're doing great.
Part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, sir.
Guys, please do like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out Cardiff City World. If you're a Cardiff fan, check out Ace Podcast Nation. If you like podcasts. Nice one.